Good afternoon, and welcome to NOCC's Ask the Expert series. I'm Alana Feuchter, and I am pleased to have Marissa Buchan joining us today to discuss nutrition. Marissa is an oncology dietitian and the COO at Savor Health, a digital health platform that provides cancer patients with personalized nutrition support and symptom management. Marissa brings a wealth of experience as she worked at a cancer center for 10 years, where she counseled patients and spearheaded nutrition research efforts. She has co-authored over 20 articles and has particular interest in the role of diet on the microbiome. For those of you not familiar with Savor Health, they have a text-based intelligent nutrition assistant named Ina that is available 24/7. Ina sends regular messages to your phone with suggestions on managing nutrition-related side effects due to cancer treatment. At the end of today's session, we will post a link in the comments section for you to register free of charge if you haven't already. And speaking of Ina, I will get started with our first question. Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you.
The first question that we have for you today is the data that we have seen from those who have already participated in INA suggests that nearly half of ovarian cancer survivors are experiencing fatigue. It was the #1 symptom. Can you offer us some suggestions on how food might improve energy level?
Absolutely, that's a great question. Before I do that, I do want to say thank you so much for having me today, and welcome to everyone who's viewing. So fatigue, it's something that we see across all cancers actually, and no matter what type of treatment that you're receiving, it is the top side effect experienced. So it's definitely something really substantial that you have to wrestle with, and it makes eating healthy very challenging. So the best defense to fatigue is fueling your body frequently. So you've probably heard the term small frequent meals before, small frequent meals and snacks. That means eating every few hours to give the body consistent energy. And that also might be more manageable than eating large meals, especially if you have any other side effects going on, like nausea or decreased appetite. So if you're struggling with eating frequently, try setting a timer on your phone for every 2 to 3 hours, and eat a small meal or snack every 2 to 3 hours. That's going to give your body kind of that consistent energy you need. Also, if you're experiencing fatigue, there's nothing wrong with buying some ready-made foods and relying on convenient foods like maybe frozen fruits and vegetables, low sodium canned beans, quick cooking whole grains. Prepared foods are totally a great resource, whether or not you're having fatigue. I use them all the time in my kitchen. Just do be aware if you're using prepared foods to kind of keep an eye on the ingredient list, since some of those do have higher levels of added sugar and sodium. So do keep an eye on that. And then the last thing I would recommend is when you do feel like you have energy to cook, batch cook. So instead of just making one meal's worth, make a large amount that you can either eat throughout the week, or you can freeze and save for later. So some examples of things that I do batch cooking, you can make mini frittatas, like mini egg muffins in a muffin tin. So just mix up some eggs with whatever vegetables you like. You can add some cheese for extra protein as well, and bake those. And then you have these little individual muffin cups that you can have for breakfast the whole week. So that's one example. I also always in my freezer make batches of turkey meatballs, soups, stews, things like that you can freeze in individual portions. And then another thing that I do is for whole grains. I know it can be a little bit of a hassle to cook brown rice or quinoa, things like that. So make a big portion. And then again, the freezing tip, I actually will sometimes portion it out in a muffin tin. Take the whole muffin tin and put it in the freezer, let it freeze, and then you can pop them out into a big Ziploc bag. So then you have a Ziploc baggie full of these little individual perfect portion size grains that are ready to go at any time.
That's a great idea. I love that. And that's for anybody, I think, at any time.
Definitely.
Okay. Let me ask you my next question. You mentioned eating small meals and snacks, and I was going to ask you what were some easy snacks, like good, quick snacks to go.
Yes. No, you're right. It's not just about the frequency or the when, but also the what, of course. So choosing the right meal or snack is something that you kind of have to get creative to do. And I like to come up with what I call power combos. So Ideally, a power combo will have three things. It'll have protein, fat, and fiber. So all three of those things. So just a little, you probably already know this, but a little background. Protein is found in things like Greek yogurt, nuts, beans, cheese, lean meats, seafood. Healthy fat was the other thing I mentioned. Fat found in vegetable oils, avocado, nuts, seeds, dairy products. And then fiber found in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, whole grain breads, legumes, nuts, etc. So by combining those things, you're really going to get long lasting fuel for the body. So a good rule of thumb is to combine a fruit or vegetable with something that has fat and or protein, ideally both. So here's some examples of what I would do. If you have a sweet tooth, which is definitely where I fall on the spectrum, I like to take a whole grain waffle and toast it, spread it with peanut butter, and then add some sliced apples and cinnamon on top. So the waffle and the apple give you the fiber. The peanut butter gives you the fat and the protein, and then the cinnamon, gives it a little pizzazz to make it exciting. There's also been some research lately about cinnamon potentially having some benefits as well in blood sugar regulation. That's another topic.
Okay.
So another idea, if you're kind of on the savory side of the spectrum, you could do a piece of whole grain toast or some whole grain crackers with some smashed avocado and a hard-boiled egg. So the toast and crackers are giving you that fiber. Avocado actually is really high in fiber as well, and that people don't always realize that. And then the fat is coming from the egg and the avocado, and the protein's coming from the hard-boiled egg. So that's a really great combo. Some other really easy combos: Greek yogurt and berries, any kind of fruit with nut butter, roasted chickpeas or hummus with your favorite dipper. Edamame is a great one. You can drizzle it with a little bit of sesame oil and sea salt, and that's a delicious snack. Or cherry tomatoes with mozzarella. Those are some of my favorites. And of course, smoothies. I know a lot of people, especially when they're going through treatment, seem to gravitate towards smoothies. It's something that you can get like a really complete source of nutrition in one go, and sometimes drinking feels more appealing at times when you're experiencing side effects than eating does. So my ratio for smoothies is usually 2 to 1 to a half. So 2 parts fruits or vegetables, 1 part liquid, and half part like a thickener. So like a Greek yogurt or some peanut butter, some avocado, or a combination of those things. So fruits and veggies, any kind you like or have. I always include a vegetable in my smoothies because it's sort of like, there's no reason not to. You can't taste it when there's a small handful of spinach in your smoothie. Just throw it in there. You're basically eating a salad, so it's great. And then for the liquid, I'll often use almond milk or soy milk or whatever liquid you like, and then yogurt or for the thickener.
Okay,
So
you're making me hungry.
I know, me too. That's why I'm sitting in the kitchen right now. I think about food all day long. So perfect perfection.
Well, that's a lot of great ideas for snacks. My next question for you is, depending on where we are in the country, we're at various stages of opening up. But survivors, no matter what, are going to remain vulnerable and are probably going to want to avoid places where people are gathering, such as grocery stores, as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So can you suggest some pantry and freezer staples that everyone should pick up when they are at the grocery store so that they can reduce how often they might have to go?
Yes. Absolutely. A stocked pantry and freezer, whether right now or anytime, is just kind of the best thing you can have as a tool to prepare healthy meals at home without too much stress. I do think a lot of people worry that shelf-stable foods or frozen foods automatically mean they're unhealthy, but that's really not the case at all. I'll start with the pantry, and I pulled out a few of my favorite things, some props that I'm going to show you. So first would be like low-sodium canned beans. So these are chickpeas. I use these all the time in hummuses. I actually watched, you guys did an amazing Facebook Live with Chef Elle last month, and she shared a chickpea salad that sounded super delicious. So that is a great source of protein. You can add to soups, salads, etc. So easy. The next thing I'm gonna highlight is nut butter, which is actually like my favorite food. And if people ask me that question, like you're stranded on a desert island, what's the one food that you couldn't live without? For me, it's peanut butter, no question. It's another amazing, just like chickpeas, it has fiber and protein. So it's an amazing thing to keep in your pantry. And when you have nothing else, like a peanut butter sandwich is a perfect meal. So it's a good go-to. And the next thing I always have is some whole grains like brown rice or quinoa. I actually, as we were talking about fatigue before, I kind of find cooking grains a pain sometimes. So I do rely sometimes on these little packets of grains as well. They're a little more expensive than buying dried grains. So, you don't have to do that. But for those days that you really don't feel like cooking, this, 90 seconds and I have plenty of quinoa for my meal. So that's a good option. The other thing would be keep some plant-based milk is actually shelf stable. So soy milk is my pick for plant-based milk over almond milk, which I think is delicious. I use all the time as well, but soy milk has some fat and some protein that almond milk lacks. So if you're looking for a source of protein, soy milk is a better choice. And you can just keep this in case maybe you run out of your fresh milk before you make it to the grocery store again, and you're trying to kind of extend the time between your trips to the store. Keep some of that in the pantry as well. And then the last thing is some good canned goods. So low sodium tuna is a great source of protein. Salmon is probably even better because you get some of those omega-3s as well. There's some great canned tomato products out there that you can use really easily in your cooking. So those are some of my favorite pantry staples. You mentioned the freezer as well. It's great to keep a stocked freezer all the time. Always fruits and veggies. So berries and mango I keep in the freezer for smoothies. For vegetables, broccoli, peas, edamame are great frozen veggies. And then keep some protein in there for the times that you're kind of out of everything but still want to put together a kind of complete meal. So frozen shrimp or fish are great options. Frozen chicken, they can last for, a couple months in the freezer if frozen properly. And then don't forget also about the fresh items, the perishable items that last a really long time. So there are certain produce like sweet potatoes, apples, carrots, beets. Those last like months in the refrigerator. So you can kind of stock up on those and you'll have some fresh produce as well. Eggs also last a lot longer than people think. Yogurt, if you get one with a good sell-by date, lasts a really long time in the freezer. Also, certain cheeses do last a long time, especially hard cheeses like manchego or those individually wrapped cheese sticks. Those can last a long time in the refrigerator as well, as does packaged tofu that lasts a long time as well.
Wow, that was a lot.
I know, I'm sorry, too much.
No, that was fantastic. I'm checking off in my head all the things that I have and all the things I need to get now.
Yes, I never have to leave the house. I have to say this is probably the first time in 3 months that I've worn mascara. So it's very exciting.
Yes. Speaking of the grocery store, are there any precautions that you think you need to take in terms of food safety?
Yes. Grocery shopping. I will say when you are neutropenic, which means you're immune compromised to a certain level, I would avoid grocery shopping if you can and try out grocery delivery or enlist the help of friends and family if you can. Just when you're most immunocompromised, it's probably better to avoid it. There's so many services out there we can use to get groceries without having to go into the grocery store. But if you are shopping for yourself, just be aware of those riskiest places in the grocery store. So those would be the deli counter. Think about when they're cutting the deli meat and the deli cheeses. You don't know who's touching it, who's breathing on it, how often they've cleaned their machinery. So probably best to stay away from those and stick to kind of the prepackaged sealed containers. Bulk bins also at the supermarket are best to avoid, those open containers that everyone's scooping from. Instead, buy those pre-packaged containers. For produce, though, it's okay to get it because you're going to wash it before you use it, and you should wash produce whether or not you're going to peel it. Like even an avocado, you should rinse the outside of it, because when you cut through that fruit, anything that's on the outside, you're kind of dragging through to the inside. So it is a good practice just to rinse your fruit and vegetables really well with cold running water. And then I should also mention, as I'm talking about produce, there's kind of a misconception about eating raw produce while you're going through treatment, or if you have neutropenia or if you're immune compromised, and that's actually kind of been debunked. in the last several years. So it is safe to eat fruits and vegetables throughout your treatment, as long as you're kind of practicing those safe washing practices. And then the last thing I'll mention, you should stick to, pasteurized dairy products. Make sure all your products are well sealed, no dents in cans, no cracks in packages. Pick up your refrigerated and freezer items at the end of your shopping trip, so they spend the least amount of time outside of the refrigerator. So those are some of the tips for grocery shopping.
Those are great tips. Thank you.
Awesome. I think we should all be doing.
Yes. And maybe not just during COVID, but all the time.
For sure.
Okay, so we all know that organic is a better choice, but sometimes it's either not available or it may be too expensive for our budget. And if we have to make choices, where do we make those choices to go organic?
That's a great question. I get that question all the time. The truth is, organic doesn't necessarily equate with healthier. I'll also say that any produce is better than no produce. So you have to do what works for your family and your budget and your availability. I think even with COVID-19, certain things that I typically buy organic, it's all out the window now. I get whatever I can get, and that's fine. That's fine. So that's the disclaimer. For produce, there has been some research that has shown there's like a slight increase in nutrients and antioxidants, and also lower levels of pesticide residue. So both of those are a good thing for sure. But certain types of produce are impacted more than others. So when you're doing that cost benefit analysis, there's the Environmental Working Group, the EWG, has a list that comes out every year called the Dirty Dozen. Which are basically those fruits and vegetables that are affected the most by pesticides, and then the Clean 15 on the flip side, which are the things that aren't super affected by pesticides. So the Clean 15, you can probably buy conventional and save a few dollars there. The Dirty Dozen, which right now on the list I think are strawberries, spinach, kale, apples, peaches, tomatoes. Those, if you can, get organic. If not, don't stress though. Again, produce is going to have benefits, whether it's conventional or organic. If you do really want to try organic and it's not in your budget, it might be worth looking at frozen items as well, because you can sometimes get more affordable, like frozen strawberries, frozen spinach, canned tomato products that are organic might be more budget friendly. I will say for packaged foods and snacks, I don't think organic really means much of anything. An organic cookie doesn't magically make it healthy. So that's an area not to splurge. No reason to splurge on the organic cookies. You can stick with the regular ones.
Okay, good to know. My husband will be happy to hear that.
Uh-huh.
We have all heard about lots of different kinds of diets out there. There's Mediterranean, there's keto, there's vegetarian. Do you recommend one over another for ovarian cancer patients?
Great question. There's no magical best diet. I tend to gravitate towards ones that don't eliminate any entire food group and emphasize moderation and mostly plant-based foods. So because of all that, I tend to recommend the Mediterranean diet to a lot of my patients, and that kind of the foundation are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lots of healthy fats, including fatty fish, which a lot of us don't have enough in our diet. I also really like that the Mediterranean diet focuses on lifestyle as well. So kind of enjoying our meals mindfully with friends and family when we can, rather than eating in front of the TV or standing in front of the pantry, eating mindlessly, which I know I'm guilty of too. I know a lot of survivors also do choose to follow a vegetarian diet, which can be a really healthy choice as well. But vegetarians have to be a bit more strategic about making sure they're getting a good variety of plant-based proteins. Vegans also need to be especially careful about B12 and a few other nutrients that are only found in animal products. And then the last, I'll say I'm not a huge supporter of like the keto or paleo diets that are super hot right now. I know, unless it's recommended for a medical reason, like the treatment of epilepsy. Like I said at the beginning, any diet that like eliminates an entire category of healthy food, like fruits or legumes, I think throws up a big red flag.
Thank you. This is a question I'm sure you get a lot too, because it's always in the news. And so there is publicity that says that eating sugar feeds your cancer. Can you tell us if that's true?
Sure. It's a complicated one. The short answer is no. Sugar does not directly feed cancer, but there is something there that's worth discussing. So the research has shown that obesity is a risk factor for cancer. And we all know that eating a lot of refined carbohydrates and added sugars can lead to obesity and also promote inflammation in the body. And inflammation in the body causes damage to the DNA over time, and that can cause cancer. So there is kind of a link there that you can see. But then on the flip side, cancer cells need energy, but so do the rest of the cells in your body. They rely on glucose specifically for energy. And there's a system in your body that keeps your blood sugar level at a stable, in a stable range, whether you're eating sugar or not. If you're not, it'll create its own. So there's no reason to eliminate it entirely, but it is a very good practice to reduce inflammation and reduce your risk of weight gain and those other issues by limiting the amount of refined carbohydrates and added sugars in the diet, like packaged snacks, baked goods, etc. No reason to limit fruit. I know some people get worried, and people seem to be terrified of bananas for whatever reason. There's nothing scary about a banana. The fiber and the water and the antioxidants that are found in whole fruits are amazing. So don't worry about the sugar in fruits and vegetables.
Perfect. Some of the anti-nausea medicines cause constipation. So would you suggest certain foods to alleviate that?
Great question. Yeah, I know you fix one problem and you cause another, right?
Yes. All the
exactly.
time.
Yep. Constipation is a side effect of many medications. And there's a lot you can do with your diet to combat it. Probably the most important thing, number one, I think, is hydration. So drinking enough water throughout the day is really the most important thing for regularity. The amount that's appropriate differs from person to person, but just eight glasses of water tends to be what people use as a target. But keep an eye on the color of your urine and keep it pale or clear. That's kind of what we're going for. The other thing you can do is eat a high fiber diet, of course, including fruits and vegetables. So in fruits, mangoes and pears seem to be especially helpful with constipation. Whole grains and legumes, nuts and seeds, all those things will help. And then on the flip side, you should avoid the foods that worsen constipation. So refined carbohydrates, like white bread and white rice, and those things can make constipation worse. Underripe bananas can be a little constipating. Red meat, fried foods, and alcohol. And then the last thing is movement. So a little bit of physical activity in a way that's safe for you. Definitely always keep an eye on what's appropriate for you, where you are in your treatment. But a little bit of movement really helps as well. So going for a little walk a couple of times a day, if you can do wonders for constipation.
Several medications that ovarian cancer survivors take say that they need to be taken with food to prevent nausea. Do you have a suggestion on what might be some good foods to take with your medication?
Good question. So the whole purpose behind eating with certain medications is one, to create a buffer in the stomach, and that will help prevent some of the irritation that can occur taking medicine. And then the other is that when you eat food, that starts the digestive process. And so those digestive juices that are flowing are important to also break down your medication so that it can be absorbed properly. So it's a twofold effect that it's doing. So for most medications, obviously talk to your doctor about this, but most medications, it's not critical what or how much you eat, just that you're eating something. So all those balanced small meals and snacks that we talked about earlier would do the trick. There are certain medications that have interactions with food, like grapefruit, for example, is a really common one with several medications. So you should just, be aware of if there's any foods you should particularly avoid when you're taking specific medications.
Perfect. I have one more question for you, and then we're going to open it up to questions from our audience, which I know are starting to come in.
Awesome.
But the last question I have is we often hear of survivors getting a metallic taste
Mm.
because of the treatments. And how would you suggest dealing with that?
Yes, another really common side effect. One thing you can do is rinse your mouth before meals. You can either just rinse with water, or you can make your own kind of mouthwash with baking soda and salt and water. Just Google that homemade mouthwash. It's like super common and easy to make. So you could rinse before your meal. That tends to help. But then also, I think meat tends to be especially problematic with the metallic taste, which isn't surprising because meat is high in iron. So it's like you're actually eating metal, and probably tastes that way too. So by marinating meats in fruit juices or lemon, if it's too metallic, that can be a good option, or just substitute kind of those vegetarian protein sources if meat isn't working for you. Another thing is to that I think people don't think of, utensils. So we use metal utensils when we eat often, and that can actually make the metallic taste worse. So when you're really having a lot of metallic taste, try to use plastic silverware. That can help. And also avoiding canned items, since those canned items kind of retain some of that metallic flavor. So instead you can choose soups that come in boxes or glass jars instead. That can be helpful. And then the last thing is mints, like sugar-free mints, gum, lemon drops, things like that. If you suck on one before your meal, that can kind of help with the metallic taste.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to open up to our audience. So if there are questions, please type them below. But I do have a few that have come through. Suzanne asked, what about juicing?
Okay, juicing. So juicing can be totally healthy as a component of a regular diet. So if you like juicing, it is a good way to, get a lot of those fruits and vegetables in one sitting. I personally don't love it for a few reasons, because when you juice a fruit or vegetable, you're removing the fiber, which is a really important part. You're kind of just ending up with the juice. So one, you're losing the fiber, and two, it's a lot more concentrated in sugar than if you were eating the fruit or vegetable in its entirety. So I kind of prefer making smoothies to juicing, because when you blend a smoothie, all the fiber and all that and the liquid stays in the smoothie, whereas juice like, kind of filters out all that fiber. I know if you make your own juices, you might see like all that stuff that's left in the juicing machine is all that fiber you're not getting. So I think it's fine to have juice occasionally, but I wouldn't like do a juicing cleanse. There's no such thing as a cleanse. You could do it occasionally.
Okay, so this wasn't a question, but I'd like to know more. Talk about a cleanse.
This is like a dietitian thing. It's like a pet peeve of all dietitians. It's like detoxifying, using your diet as a detoxifying. That's like what your liver's for. And a diet can't detoxify your body. Of course, eating, those healthy anti-inflammatory foods that we've been talking about is definitely a way to kind of reduce the toxins in your body. But juicing isn't going to be like that magic fix, or any diet or any product that you hear about that is said to detoxify or cleanse. It's kind of a red flag for me.
Okay. Another question I have is, do we need to avoid chocolate and alcohol?
So I'll answer those two separately. Alcohol, I'll go with first. That is going to be kind of dependent on where you are in your treatment. And you should always check with your doctor if it's safe to drink alcohol. If you do and it's safe for you to drink alcohol, moderation. All the research has kind of shown this curve where a little bit of alcohol is fine, but then once you go past kind of that 1 drink a day for women is what the guideline says, then you kind of get a drop off in the health benefits. So a little bit seems to be okay, but then you really, really want to practice moderation as that with that. It can also kind of dehydrate you. That's just something to be aware of. So if you're drinking alcohol, make sure you're also drinking extra fluids to make sure you're maintaining your hydration. Chocolate, I would say absolutely. It is important. I think it's important to honor your sweet tooth if you have one. And if you avoid it, you're just going to go too far in the other direction at some point if you kind of continue to deny yourself. Dark chocolate has antioxidants. It actually has fiber as well. So a little bit of dark chocolate in moderation is totally fine as well. If you're having like acid reflux or anything like that, sometimes chocolate can exacerbate it. That would be the only time I would say maybe lay off the chocolate.
Well, that was Heather's question, and I think you just made her and a lot of other people very happy. They can.
I am biased. I love chocolate for sure. So,
let's see. I have another question. This is interesting. What's the best way, or what about antioxidants, and what about taking vitamins?
Mm-hmm. So antioxidants are found in foods. So fruits and vegetables are probably the biggest source of antioxidants in the diet, and more is more when it comes to produce. As much as possible, they do kind of help fight that inflammatory process in the body. Vitamin antioxidants, I don't think are typically a good idea. So even like vitamin C supplements, things like that, that's an antioxidant. You don't want to put too much in your body because that kind of might throw off the natural balance that's going on there. Any supplement, I think always talk to your medical team first, since there's certain that could be dangerous for, whatever conditions are going on. In cancer treatment, there actually has been some research that's shown that if you're taking high levels of antioxidant supplements, it can interfere with treatment, with chemotherapy, for example, because the role of the chemotherapy is kind of to create a little bit of that, oxidation in the body. So you're kind of counteracting that if that's the goal of your treatment. So always talk to your doctor first. In general, focus on foods over supplements whenever you can.
So another Liz, hi Liz, asked, when she was in treatment, she was often too nauseous to eat, even when she was given, nausea medications. And she asked, how do you prepare your stomach for food?
Yeah, that's very tough. I mean, when you're nauseous, it can be hard to find anything that seems appealing. The best thing you can do is kind of stick to those starchy, low-fat, bland foods like toast and crackers. Avoid high-fat foods since we digest them more slowly, so that can make your nausea worse. I also think cool and cold foods tend to be better tolerated than hot foods when you have nausea. So kind of stick to like yogurt, cheese, a light pasta salad, ice cream, things like that. Also, in terms of preparing yourself to eat, maybe when you're having really bad nausea, focus on those ready-made foods, because if you're preparing food in your house and there's smells and those can be really triggering for some people. So probably better to kind of focus on the ready-made foods that kind of don't have those strong odors. And I think, especially in ovarian cancer patients that I've worked with, nausea often goes hand in hand with bloating. So sometimes if you're feeling bloated and nauseous, it can be really tough to eat anything if you're also trying to hydrate at the same time. So it's kind of better to stagger your drinking and your eating. So drink between your meals so that you stay hydrated, and then not during your meals, because you want to kind of save the real estate for the food at the meal times.
Okay, I have one more question for you. I realize we're actually a little
Awesome.
over time, so hopefully we can ask this one or answer this one question. Suzanne is asking, what are some of the best anti-inflammatory foods?
Awesome. Great question. Similar that things that we've talked about already, anti-inflammatory foods are going to be those really colorful fruits and vegetables. So, and it's not just about having color, you want to have a variety of color. So each color provides different antioxidants. So, people always talk about the dark blues and purples, like blackberries, blueberries, grapes. Those have a lot of antioxidants. And then, the green foods that have, the broccoli, those cruciferous foods have a lot of antioxidants as well. Even white foods like garlic and onion have a lot of antioxidants. So definitely the the produce foods are like the antioxidant powerhouses. But then also the other kind of anti-inflammatory thing I want to mention is healthy fat. So olive oil used in your cooking is very anti-inflammatory, as well as omega-3 fatty acids found in salmon and other fatty fish. It's also in walnuts and flaxseed. Those are super anti-inflammatory as well and are great to include in the diet.
Fantastic. Wow. I don't know how we packed that much information in
I know,
35 minutes, because I feel like that was 3 hours worth of information. So thank you for all that you shared today, Marissa. And thank you for our viewers out there who enjoyed that. I know we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback. Just so everyone out there knows, our next Facebook Live will be on June 25th, and we will have Dr. Haggerty discuss maintenance therapies on ovarian cancer. If you want to combine what you learned today about nutrition with a little bit of exercise, on our Facebook page tomorrow, we are hosting a Pilates class with our partner, My Victory. I hope to see you at both, perhaps. And I thank you once again, Marissa, for the wealth of information that you provided to our survivors. And I hope everyone has a fantastic day.